Hello friends, I hope you are fine. In our first tutorial, we looked at how to write JSON and why it is important for you to understand JSON structure. Now in this tutorial, we will look at how we can take JSON and basically parse and decode into Swift. So without further ado, let's jump right to tutorial. We will focus on how we can create a nested JSON and parse it and decode it into a Swift structure. So I have created a simple nested JSON and let's say that this email, it is optional. Sometimes from the server they send it and sometimes they don't send it. So what I will do is I will copy this JSON and I have created this empty file with extension JSON. That's the file extension for every JSON file. And while putting, instead of simple pasting and copying pasting, I will say paste and preserve formatting. So in this way, the format of the JSON is same as you created online. So that's one way to preserve the formatting of JSON. Okay, now save it and we will read. I have created this JSON file and now we will read it in from resource folder. Remember that all the files that are included in resource folder, they are part of app bundle. You can read from it, but you cannot write to this app bundle. All right, let me hide it. So I have created a simple struct with JSON Manager, and it has simply one method read from file, and I have created here an object, uh, and then we are reading this JSON file and printing it. So to save time, I have created this boilerplate. So if we look at this code, in fact, we can refactor it a little bit, because it is currently having 3 return statements, and to improve it, we can say combine. We can combine this part and okay, and now we can get rid of this. Okay, let me a little bit format and okay. So now first we go to main bundle and search for this file name with this extension. If it is found, then we try to read its content, and if it is not found, we are simply returning empty string from this method. If it has content, it will return it. So when we call this function, we can see that it is basically returning a JSON string. Now what we do is that we will look at JSON and try to create a structure similar to JSON. We try to mirror basically JSON structure. So let me make it a little bit bigger. Let me create a struct to represent information in the JSON with the name person, and let name is type string, and to save time, let's copy name, age is working since we are using camel case, and email. Okay, and okay, align it, and then there is a nested information which is in address object. Okay, compiler is shouting let cannot appear nested inside another var. Oh, since I am coming from JSON syntax, that is why I've actually mistakenly added. Okay, now regarding the email, email can be optional. That is why I'm going to put it optional. And the other struct that I am creating would be address. And similarly, let me copy in city and postal code and country. And yeah, and since address is nested inside this person object, so I will create an instance of address here. Okay. Now, Swift or Apple introduced a protocol which is called Codeable. Basically, it is type alias of code and decode, and in this we will be only decoding JSON. So I am only using decodable. Okay, so all set. Okay, compiler is shouting type person does not conform to protocol decodable, and the reason is that the nested type, which is address, it should also conform to decodable protocol. Hopefully now it will not throw this error. Okay, all set now. Now if we look at JSON on the left side, there are some keys which are different from structure field is working. Here it is working, and from the JSON, usually the server side team may be a different team and they have different naming convention for field, and they are using snake case with underscore. So and in Swift we are using camel case notation, and we have to tell basically our compiler that when you receive this information with is working, you have to convert into this camel case notation. And to tell the compiler, we have to basically conform to a separate protocol, and for that basically it's a mapping to tell the compiler that when you receive a property with underscore, convert it to our without underscore notation. And Apple asked us to create a special enum with basically name coding keys, and since keys would be in the form of string, so we should create an enum with string type raw values, and also there is a separate protocol that we have to confirm as well, which is coding key. And now we define mapping name, age, and email and address. They will be as it is, and you can put separate cases as well. For example, do like this, but I prefer to save some lines like this. Okay, and the case that would be different is working. It will have a key is working. Now there is a problem that if we look at, okay, we have to add a comma here. Now if we look at the address has also different naming convention, which is postal code, and we have postal with the C capital code. And to do that, we have to do similar, create a special enum of raw values, string type, and coding. It should conform to coding key protocol. And city, country, it would be similar names, and postal code will have a different key that we will receive from some. Now everything looks good. I just want to clean up code little bit, and instead of nesting it, I want to put it into a different extension, person extension, and let me do similar for address. Okay. And right. So now we have created a mapping for this JSON in our Swift, and now we will basically convert this JSON into this Swift struct. So if you have a hobbies field in your JSON coming from the server, and in app you don't need it, you can ignore in your mapping and it will work totally fine. Now let's decode this JSON into Swift structure, and for that first we will create a data. Let JSON data, convert this string into JSON data, and for that we will use data class and convert string in UTF format. Now it is converted into JSON string is converted into JSON data. Now we will define a method which will convert JSON into Swift struct. So we will say get person from JSON data of type data, and it will return person object. Optional because decoding might fail, that is why. To convert JSON data to person object, we will define a decoder object of class JSON decoder, and after that we will use decoder method decode. From it basically throws. So first we will say that convert our data to person object using JSON data. Since this function throws, so we have to put it into try catch block, and so I do, and let's put this into do, and in catch block we will say it throws error, print error dot localize description. Okay, so but we want to also return person object, so we will have to put store into person and then return to return person object, missing return. Okay, return, and from this block if there is error we want to return nil. we can shorten this statement and in fact do like this. Okay, and now if the decoding is successful, it will return person object, and let's check it out by calling this function person and JSON Manager dot get person from JSON data and print person dot, for example, name property. Playground is throwing an error. Value of optional person must be wrapped. So let's do first check if there is a person, and if it has, then print person dot name. Okay, so now compiler is basically throwing another error, which is data could not be read because it's not in correct format. And for that we have to compare JSON with our data mapping, otherwise code looks fine. So let's say tutorial, okay, and name string format, age. Oh, here we in our mapping there is a mistake because age is integer here, and here we have defined string. Other is working is boolean, so we should also create bool type, email, and another R string. So that's another disadvantage of copy paste. Okay, all set, and now we can see that data person name address, for example, we can say is working address person dot address. Let's see. Okay, so it is correct, working fine. So this is one way where I showed you how to parse a nested JSON. Now we will look at how basically in first method we try to mirror our structure of JSON in our Swift, and we defined two objects, person and address, to mirror the data that we have in JSON. But a lot of time in our API response, mirroring similar to what we have in JSON does not work, and for that there is a different kind of method which we will have look at it shortly.